Welcome to the chorus with Chris and Allison. We are chatting about soulmates. We've had a couple interesting experiences this last week that led us to be having these interesting conversations, and we thought we'd invite you in.
Yeah, let's talk about it. It's interesting for me to try to separate this concept that feels kind of spiritual or very abstract, separating that from my therapy mind and like the theory of unconscious projection, really, in relationships. So, yeah, I want to let you maybe kick it off. What are your wonderings or what's top of mind for you when you think about soulmates?
Well, just as you said that, it's like both can be true. Like
Yes.
it like we can bring both of those things in, like both the psychological mindset and this kind of spiritual mindset. And just before this call, as I was looking for this one research article that I had found years ago about soulmates, I discovered all these other psychological research articles about soulmates. And I think there is this question of like, what is a soulmate? Does a soulmate exist? Is there this unconscious kind of projection that's happening? Because there's certainly this lived and felt experience of a soulmate. One of the things that I had found, it was like 73% of Americans believe in soulmates. That's a lot of people who believe that. And maybe some of those believe it, some of those have experienced it. And I think I'm in the camp of both are true because I have experienced and am experiencing what I feel to be a soulmate relationship. And what you brought in, this kind of like projected unconscious love aspect can exist simultaneously. And like, how do we know the difference? Are both true at the same time? And yeah, this kind of spiritual idea of soulmates is like maybe there's this one person out there for you. And it's more based on destiny and faith. Like you're destined to find this one person. Maybe you've been connected through different lifetimes, and that there's this meant to be mentality versus yeah, maybe this other psychological mindset of like, well, what is that idea? Let's look at that a little further. Is that true? And can it be true on different levels?
Yeah, I think a lot of us in the beginning of a relationship where we're in that romantic stage and we have all those feel-good hormones, it feels probably similar to a soulmate experience. Like what you said, this is meant to be. This, I was meant to find this person. Everything just aligned, the stars aligned for us, and this is my soulmate. So it can be hard to separate those out. When I think about soulmate, I definitely think more about, let's see, kind of the unspoken, like you just know me. I just know you. We've known each other forever. It doesn't really make sense. There's maybe all these synchronicities. It feels like the universe, you know, just put us in the right place at the right time. I was destined to find you. But again, as I'm saying that, I think that's all those stories played for me when I was in the falling in love romantic stage as well. It was like this biological pull to that person, and it felt very unspoken. It wasn't logical. It was just this feeling, this pull, this attraction. So, something you said before we started recording about soulmates was kind of what was it? Like communicating without words.
Mm, mhm.
Is that does that mean you're finishing my sentences or you're saying the thing that I was thinking? It was like you read my mind. Is that more of what you think about with soulmate?
I think that can certainly be true for some people and in some experiences when you said like there's just this unspoken knowing that like I think for me it was more this like unspoken knowing that we are meant to be and we both feel it. And yeah, that we get each other in this deep core way of who we are without needing to communicate it. But as I'm saying that, I feel like the kind of the danger of that too. It's like it can be like so expansive and opening, but then there's like the shadow side of that where it's like as I was looking for this research article, like the newest research, as I was looking for this research article of like qualities of soulmates that I had found a long time ago, the newest articles that I was finding were about how this idea of a soulmate relationship can actually be harmful. And so, as I was just talking about this kind of like unspoken knowing of each other, like I can feel the beauty of that and the connection in that. And then I also am like, well, getting to know each other and really speaking about values and how to like grow and heal in a relationship really like require communication. And so,
So the
yeah.
idea is that when you have this mindset, or I don't know, I was the word that came to me was like fantasy about a soulmate, and you go into a relationship with that sense that this person is my soulmate, or that definition of the relationship, you're you're saying in that case people often lack the willingness to actively participate in co-creating a long-lasting relationship. There's kind of this idea or assumption that if I'm with my soulmate, it will just be easy.
Yeah, I think that's what they're finding, or what the question mark is like people who enter soulmate relationships or thinking that that's the relationship that they're supposed to find, go out and find their one, that there's this fantasy that the relationship will somehow complete them and maybe there won't be any more work to do or that it'll be easy. And I think that that's actually true for some people. Not that it doesn't require work, but there are some relationships that come together and, maybe have that soulmate experience that can actually be easier or less challenging. But the danger is, yeah, this idea that a soulmate relationship will carry the relationship or the marriage versus the actual growth and work needed to create it. Like the idea that the soulmate relationship is created for you versus being a human and stepping in every day into the relationship.
Hmm, that's interesting. Will you share about your soulmate experience?
Yeah, it's kind of, it still blows me away to this day when I reflect back, but it was one winter solstice day, and I was in Sedona with some friends, and we were doing a little winter solstice honoring and ceremony, and we were calling in, like in saying an intention of what we wanted to call in. And I just felt this readiness that I was ready to meet my love and that I was ready to like welcome my lifelong partner, spouse relationship. And so I set that intention and I met him that night. I know it's kind of a cliche story, but we didn't actually like we did meet that night. We didn't like have a deep conversation in about being soulmates and connect that night, but we did meet at a gathering that night. And it didn't immediately feel that way. I didn't see him and think, oh, he's my soulmate, or I wasn't looking for him. It just happened to kind of be that we did meet that evening. But it was more in our first conversations together that I started to feel this. I feel like I've known this person forever. And I want to know this person forever. I want to be friends with this person forever, is how I felt in our first conversation. And there was what I experienced to be like real, like cosmic alignment and connection around it. In our first conversation, he was telling me a story about something significant in his life, and I was looking out the window and a shooting star went by. Like these real, like kind of magical feelings and synchronicities happening around our meeting that were undeniable. And we had like 10 things like that probably happen in our meeting and our coming together. And still, even though I was having these feelings of I feel like I've known him forever on our first conversation, I I told him that I wasn't interested in being in a relationship, and I was really feeling it as like a friend soulmate. Like this is a male friend soulmate that I've like I'm so excited to meet. But just there was so many things that felt like it was destiny conspiring us to be together. And so when I hear the word fantasy and when I look through it with a psychological lens, like there are parts of me that want to define it in those terms and really understand it through those terms. And then there's a real lived experience in me that feels this spiritual experience through it, and that I do believe in it. However, I don't necessarily believe that everyone needs and should go searching for the one and a soulmate, and that a soulmate means that it's the person that you're supposed to be with for the rest of your life. Because ultimately, although my husband is my soulmate, our marriage requires just as much effort as anyone else's.
Yeah, wow. I love your story of I say manifesting your partner, but yes, all the just magic around it. The universe was it felt like a clear message from the universe of this is your soulmate. This is your person. Everything aligned. You were supposed to meet. He was living in the place that you wanted to live, that you wanted to move to. But then you're saying you after that initial, so you kind of had you had the soulmate experience in this initial meeting where
Mm-hmm.
you couldn't really explain it, but you just felt like you had known him forever and there was some unspoken connection that wasn't initially romantic. It didn't register for you in that way. It was just this person. I just feel so connected to this person.
Mm-hmm.
and so safe with this person.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that talking to you through that time where you were really you felt really clear in that. Like I don't feel the romantic feelings. I think this is just a friendship, but it feels so wonderful. Like I really enjoy our conversations. It feels all very kind of kismet. But yeah, I don't think this is going to be my romantic partner. And then it developed into that. So in this case, you did not have this confusing piece that kind of blurs the lines of the unconscious, immediate kind of projected attraction.
Correct. Yeah, that was different. That it wasn't all kind of like meshed up in one.
Hmm. So I think, okay, this is helping me when we meet someone, and it doesn't have to be right away, but when we're in that early stage of getting to know someone, and pretty early on, we have this very strong emotional, kind of all-consuming
Mm.
response to them, physiological response to them. Like,
Mm.
I need to be with this person. They are incredible. They are everything, right?
Mm.
Their smell, oh my gosh, I just want to be on them. I want to be with them all the
Mhm.
time. Those are pretty good signals to me that there's an unconscious element here.
Mhm.
This is that unconscious falling in love romantic stage where you've got the hormones pumping through your body and you're unconsciously identifying this other person as like your completion or the person who's going to heal you and rescue you from your pain and
Mhm.
misery.
Yeah. Those
So
two very
you
different experiences.
Very different. Yes. Like when you met your partner, it sounds like there was you were very centered. You were very anchored. Um, you weren't having, I don't know, tell me if this is wrong.
Mhm.
You weren't having these physiological responses of like my heartbeat is racing and
No, no, not at all. Actually, I felt very centered. I felt very clear, but I was also blown away at the same time. But I no, there was no like, butterflies in the stomach or and not like that's a bad thing. We can feel nervous, but there wasn't this like I need to be right with him. I like, I need this. There's something gonna fulfill me. And I was actually very, even though I was being blown away, I was like, okay, like what is all this? I was very cautious. And it actually took some opening up to let myself see the beauty that was there. And actually, I do want to share this one kind of synchronicity that happened was I had written this poem, this very like short kind of one-liner thing. Sometimes I get these little messages that come to me. It was on my typewriter years back, and I wrote like, "What is a soulmate? Someone that helps bring me back home to me." Something like that. It was like about reconnecting me to myself. I could find it. But then when I met him and I was like, oh my gosh, I remember. I don't even know if I was thinking of it. I was just looking through my pictures and I saw that I had written that on his birthday the year before I had met him. So just these
wow.
crazy synchronicities. And like I said, we probably had like 10 of them that it was undeniable, this like cosmic connection. But as you were talking about, it wasn't this like infatuation at all.
Yeah, that's a great word, infatuation. So say it again. My soulmate is someone who brings me back home
I'm
to
gonna look
me
it up. Okay. Oh man. Okay. I'm gonna have to find it.
Okay, so something like that. My
Yeah.
soulmate brings me home to myself
Yes, exactly.
versus the infatuation, the unconscious projection. is something like this person is going to remind me or reminds me of the people I wanted to receive love and approval from.
Mm-hmm.
This
Yeah.
person's going to recreate familiar love for me. This person's going to trigger the pain from my past. This person holds the potential to complete me. They carry they carry parts of me that I have not accepted or reclaimed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I've certainly had that experience before where it was this feeling like this overwhelming feeling that I had met somebody that was going to complete me
Right.
and that I just somehow, yeah, lucked out finding this person that I was infatuated with and had all these projections on and had so much unconscious material up with.
Yeah, I remember when you first met your current partner, your soulmate, that was actually a confusing piece for you, was
Mm-hmm.
not feeling the butterflies and the romance and the pull. It was kind of like, oh, well, without that, if I'm
Mm-hmm.
not having this big physiological response, then it's not love,
Mm-hmm.
it's friendship.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was definitely confusing. And I feel like there's so many ways to come into a relationship. I don't think that these two ways are the only ways, whether it's through this, like projection fantasy or this soulmate experience, that people can really come in this kind of experience that I did have, which there was this soulmate, but there was also this neutrality of like, well, what is this? Like, I like this person, they're a lovely person, but I'm not feeling this kind of infatuation with, which maybe you can speak more about of like entering into a relationship from this healthy place. And what does that look like?
Yeah, I think about you holding on to yourself in that meeting him. You still were holding on to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You weren't like pulled out of your body. You were very connected to you,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a curiosity about him,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't a need. It wasn't, yeah, this kind of chemical thing taking over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm thinking of like when I've heard older couples or like elderly couples being like, we met and we never spent a day apart. And I've kind of found myself being like, well, is that healthy? Is that like soulmate love? Is that like infatuation love? And this conversation is actually really illuminating to some of the differences and maybe bringing in here that there can be maybe this experience of soulmates and this experience of infatuation that go hand in hand,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yeah, I think so. Anytime we meet someone and we have that almost instant pull to them where it's like out of our control,
Hmm.
I do think that's good information to observe and be really curious about because more likely than not, there is something unconscious there playing out for you. You've you're placing some kind of story or projection onto this person in the hopes that they are going to rescue you or heal you, which really signals what we said earlier, that they are a part of your template of love. And meaning, your experience of love when you were a kid with the primary people who raised you, that is your template, how you, what they modeled for you, what you observed, and also how you experienced them, your relationship with them, the kind of love you had with them and received from them, as well as the wounding that happened in that relationship. That is the projection that you are essentially recreating. It can be different and, it doesn't have to be exact, but you're going to be recreating that with that person that you have that kind of instant physiological head over heels response to, where you do lose, for a lot of people, you do lose touch with yourself. You feel like it's like euphoria. You feel like you're kind of floating.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. And I think that can certainly happen or be confused with a soulmate relationship. I think that the synchronicities and things around it can feel really exciting and euphoric. But that key piece that you mentioned, like staying connected to yourself, am I like off? Am I just like completely going off in la la land or out of my body? Or am I still able to stay connected to myself and to what's happening and what stories are happening around this or this other person? I think was such a key piece that you brought in, like the stories that we attach to others or into what's happening.
And the more disconnected you are in relationship, so meaning if you grew up where you felt a lack of connection or a lack of attunement between you and the people who were raising you, you didn't feel really seen and heard and valued and understood and safe with the people you were living with and who were responsible for caring for you. I think you're more prone to that unconscious projection. You come into adulthood carrying those wounds and really looking for, unconsciously sometimes, looking for that person to finally give you that healing experience where you no longer have to feel alone and disconnected and invisible or whatever your core wounds are.
Mm-hmm.
So there's there's a greater chance of that happening. And when you're coming into a relationship from that place of never really having that safety and attuned relationship with your parents, I think you're more likely to expect your partner and your relationship to meet all your needs and rescue you and read your mind and be everything and just kind of deliver this this healing experience that you so desire.
Mm-hmm.
And it's harder for that person coming into the relationship with all of that wounding to understand and be capable of meeting the other person's needs or meeting the needs of the relationship and doing this dance of give and take and creating space for the two of you because you never experienced that. So you haven't, it wasn't modeled for you. You never experienced it. You don't have these skills that need to be developed and you can develop them.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are not conscious of what's happening and you're not conscious of what's being recreated, you're not being really intentional about what you want to create in this relationship, you're not able or willing to look at yourself and what you're bringing to the table,
Mm-hmm.
then your relationship is pretty doomed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But you touched on how it can be both. And I do think that's true.
Both what?
Both soulmate and unconscious projection
Oh
love.
yeah. I think that in my experience, how a soulmate relationship is so opening, it can certainly leave someone feeling more vulnerable to not staying as connected to themselves because they feel so deeply connected to somebody else. And I think for somebody really coming in already in these more vulnerable or wounded places in relationship, I think it would be like real chaotic cocktail of feelings and challenge and you know beauty and hurt and so much. So I they definitely could go hand in hand. I'm curious from your perspective of like what would somebody or what should somebody look out for as they're maybe entering a relationship or feeling out themselves in a relationship and feeling out themselves with somebody else. Like what are maybe like red flags, green flags that they can notice?
Hmm. Well, I first and foremost would say notice how you feel with this person.
Mm.
And do you feel calm and centered and regulated and connected to yourself? Or do you feel, what we've been talking about, this intense attraction kind of takes over and it's this euphoria and all excitement before you actually really know this person. And if that's happening, it doesn't mean, it's not going to work. It just, that's a really good opportunity for you to do some reflecting.
Mm-hmm.
Talk with a therapist, take a online course, talk to a good friend if you have, kind of what we've been calling a truth teller in your life, but figure that out. Journal the heck out of it. Figure out what is coming up for me? What does this person represent to me? What who do they remind me of? What do I feel like they have or they embody that I love? And then check in with yourself about how that quality might live within you, or maybe it feels like it's not in you, but you have this envy, you want that to be a part of who you are. So all of these questions are signals to the unconscious and what is playing out for you.
Mm-hmm. Would you say that like all experiences of being in love are kind of connected to that intense kind of like unconscious pairing? Or would you say that we could have experiences of being in love, like that initial being in love, that's healthy?
Hmm, that is a really good question. I'm sure there are outliers
Mm-hmm.
that I just have not come into contact with.
Mm-hmm.
In my experience, personal and professional, there's always an unconscious element to it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's not to say, I mean, there are secure people who don't experience a lot of wounding in childhood. And maybe they did have caregivers who were not perfect, but pretty attuned. And those two people, those two secure people in adulthood find each other and pair up.
Mm-hmm.
So that can happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see those people in my office. So maybe I'm not a great person to speak to that. But I would imagine there's always an unconscious element because that's just how we operate as humans.
Mm-hmm.
So much is happening beneath the surface. I mean, even if you're not bringing in some deep wounding to the relationship, you're bringing in ideas about roles and who's supposed to do what and how my partner's supposed to make me feel loved. You have your love languages. Um, you, I think we always have that piece of, even if we had really wonderful parents, maybe it was in my peer group at school, or maybe it was with a teacher or in some other environment or on a sports team or something where I started to or society. We get these messages from society too, right? Where we start to question certain parts of ourselves or dim our light a little bit. We don't like or we don't love certain parts of ourselves. Um, and so I still think even if you're secure, you're coming into a relationship with that. I think we all have that on some level.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where projection can happen too, is you're probably going to pair up with somebody who in some way reflects the part of you that you don't accept about yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm thinking of this in love feeling and thinking of like securely attached couples in their experience of it. And I'm like, well, maybe it's just like connection and oxytocin in love. Maybe
Hmm.
it's not this like grandiose, you know, just elaborate experience, but maybe it's this. And in my experience, it was like this softening in this just like connection, oxytocin, love, but not this whole. I mean, we certainly did have a whole soulmate experience, so there was that there, but not this like I can't like breathe without you and you're my everything and
Hmm.
I want to sleep, I need you every moment kind of experience.
That makes me think about the mother-child experience of bonding
Mm,
and how that is a time where we get those feel-good connection hormones without
mm-hmm.
it being this unconscious projection, maybe.
Bonding, right. What a
Hmm.
great term. Just the bonding experience. And what is a healthy in love bonding experience versus an unhealthy in love experience that maybe is more, if we're gonna look at it this way, of maybe more of like a trauma bonding experience.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Another piece we haven't touched on that I see a lot is when you get into relationship with someone you have identified as your soulmate, a lot of people think that means forever.
Mm,
And I have found my soulmate. I have found the person I'm supposed to spend the rest of my life with. And it's hard to recognize when those relationships have maybe run their course. I think it's hard to accept that my soulmate could be not my forever, could be just for this certain amount of time or for this certain function.
Hmm.
Function sounds weird, like, but to serve, like they were supposed to come into my life at this right time, in this right way. And I'm getting something, we both are getting something from this relationship. So it's serving us in some way.
Hmm.
And once we've learned the lesson this relationship was supposed to bring to us, or we've grown into the person we were supposed to become, sometimes there's an ending there.
Hmm. So there's this idea or this attachment that the soulmate is supposed to be the forever person.
Hmm. Well, so when I think about soulmate, I don't know if I've said this already. When I think about soulmate, I tend to think about it being kind of destined that this person and I were supposed to come into contact, come into relationship, whatever that relationship is, doesn't have to be romantic, for some reason. This connection is necessary for my and their growth and or healing in some way.
Hmm.
It's like a gift from the universe in a way.
Hmm.
And so when I think about it that way, well, that doesn't mean forever. I'm not, the person I choose to spend my life with, if I choose to spend my life with one person or set out with that intention, that person doesn't have to be my soulmate. That can be, that's a partnership that a lot more goes into kind of choosing that relationship, in my opinion. Um, but with soulmate, it's like this gift, this like heart connection, soul connection. There's something here for me. We're helping each other learn and grow and heal. And then once you've reached that level of growth or healing that this person in this relationship was meant to help you get to, well, there might be a natural ending there.
Hmm.
And there doesn't have to be,
Hmm.
but it's almost like, okay, we've now grown beyond each other or what this relationship is for. Maybe we no longer need each other or this relationship in the way we so did when it first started.
Hmm.
But I think when we experience so much healing and growth and heart connection with someone, it's hard to say goodbye to that. I think there's kind of this feeling of, well, one, I don't know, there's like this we've helped each other so much. We're meant to be. How could we possibly separate? I owe this person so much, might be a piece of it. And then I think there's also this fear that maybe I'll never experience this type of depth of connection again.
All really good points. I think it goes in line with this idea of the 73% of Americans thinking that there's a one, that a soulmate is a one. And if you get one, then you only get one. And
Mm.
that one you're supposed to be with for your whole life. Versus, this person has come into my life for a period of time. That doesn't mean that they're one, and the one that I'm supposed to be with forever. And so I think kind of allowing for there to be more space around what a soulmate means in what the teaching or purpose or growth is there for the individual or the couple. Um, but then this idea of like that maybe a soulmate isn't the one that you're supposed to be married to. I mean, it certainly can be that way, and that happens. And as you mentioned, there's a lot that goes into choosing the person that you're going to have a lifelong partnership with. And before this call, when we were looking at the difference of like a soulmate relationship, people who go into a relationship as a soulmate relationship versus people who go into a relationship or a marriage as a growth relationship. And I think that the qualities that one chooses to go into a marriage aren't necessarily going to be connected to their soulmate. It's like it can be and it doesn't have to be. And so I think there's a little bit of this kind of tricky thought of that the soulmate means the one and the one is for life or forever. How can I let this one go? And maybe the marriage, maybe you won't have that connection again in that same way. It's quite possible and likely. That's why they are so special. And maybe that's okay in a marriage. And maybe that's important in some ways in a marriage that there's this foundation of other qualities that are really focused on mutual life agreements versus this like predetermined state.
Yeah, it's almost like when you meet your soulmate, there's kind of this built-in relationship. Like you don't have to maybe explain everything or talk about everything or come to all these understandings and agreements. It just feels more natural. You're on the same page. Whereas with the committed partnership or marriage or long-term dynamic, you're gonna want to be having a lot of those conversations and growing and changing together. I do think about our friendship, and we talked about this before the recording, as a soulmate connection. And so that just speaks to how, yeah, your soulmate can show up in any way. It doesn't have to be a romantic connection. And I kind of think I kind of think for me, there was also an unconscious element to our friendship earlier on. But yeah, I mean, so when I think about our friendship being this soul connection, it certainly wasn't like an instant friendship. We were kind of in the same circle, navigating a lot of the same things. And there was this slow build initially of like curiosity about each other and then getting to know each other, hanging around each other indirectly, and then getting closer and spending more time and getting to know each other more deeply. And gosh, I mean, when I just look at the last 20 years, it has just been this really natural connection
Mm-hmm.
where we could go months and months sometimes without speaking at all. And when we did talk, we would just pick right back up where we left off. It was like no time had passed at all. Always felt safe and comfortable. So many synchronicities. I mean, we have found ourselves going through really similar experiences and transitions and relationship experiences and personal transformation, not necessarily right at the same time, but just navigating a lot of those things I don't know, similarly or in the same way or having the same questions. And we've been really on the same page in terms of our approach to life,
Mhm.
our our journey of self-exploration and healing and growing and changing and being curious about life and reflecting and being each other's mirrors. And yeah, and so often, we find ourselves picking up the phone or sending a text and checking in with each other or processing something major that we're processing with each other, only to find that we're kind of navigating the same thing in different forms at the same time. And so that's also been kind of this synchronicity where you'll share your process with me or, your ponderings or whatever you're working through. And I'm recognizing at the same time that those are the same questions I'm having or the same layers I'm peeling back for myself or growth that I'm stepping into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as you're speaking, I'm thinking of this neuroscientist, and I think I told you a few months ago that she talked about kind of like being on the same wavelength as others, and we can like take that for granted. I'm trying to think of her name. Her social media handle is M on the Brain. Is it like Emily McDonald? I'm not sure. But she was just talking about this, yeah, kind of shared wavelength friendships. And it makes me think of that too. And that like unspoken communication, like you'll send me a podcast or a quote or something. I'm like, that's exactly what I needed to hear right now. And we've had this kind of shared experience, yeah, not necessarily at the same time, but enough of those experiences over a long period of time that it's like, oh, we've got a strong connection. There's something here, yes, in the everyday friendship, but there's also this felt sense for me of something deeper that I can feel it, you know, when we talk, when we don't talk, over long periods of time and short periods of time. There's just like, there's a special connection that I can explain in some ways and that I can't explain in other ways. And yeah, just in terms of these having different soulmate relationships besides romantic, yeah, we can have it in friendships. And some people experience it with their children, and some people experience it with a pet or even an ancestor that they haven't met. There's this different felt deep sense of connection or familiarity. And it's just quite fascinating. And as you mentioned, there's the we connect on a number of different levels and in ways in life, or have shared values or things that we're working towards. That is a way that they describe soulmates too. People who experience themselves as soulmates have these kind of similarities in who they are or what they're reaching towards in life. And so it honestly brings up more questions for me than answers. Even bringing in this piece of neuroscience and the wavelength, I'm like, well, what, like, what is this? What is this journey? What is this felt experience? And maybe there's a number of different ways to explain it or not. And I mean, to me, I do experience a mystery of life. And there are some things known.
Yeah, I think we need to get someone to write in and tell us about their experience with a soulmate or, what we've been talking about with the kind of unconscious falling in love. That would be fun to get some more material to consider on this topic.
I love that.